The darkness of space near Neptune lit up with thousands of lights. Ship after ship appeared, dropping out of faster-than-light travel in perfect formation. They came from 12 different worlds, bringing war to humanity's doorstep. The fleet stretched across millions of miles, a wall of metal and weapons that would have made any planet surrender at first sight. Admiral Kyle Barnes stood in the command center of Sentinel-9, Earth's largest orbital defense station. He was 53 years old, with gray hair and calm eyes that had seen 3 decades of military service. Around him, dozens of officers stared at their screens, watching the alien fleet take position at the edge of the solar system. The room should have been filled with panic and fear. Instead, it was quiet, almost peaceful. A communication request flashed on the main screen. Kyle nodded to his communications officer, who opened the channel. The image that appeared showed a creature that looked like a 7-foot-tall lizard standing upright. Its scales were dark green, and its eyes were yellow with black slits. When it spoke, a computer translated its words into English. The creature identified itself as Vexthor, Supreme Commander of the Galactic Council Fleet. Its voice was deep and carried the weight of absolute authority. The message was simple and direct. Humanity had been observed for 75 years. In that time, Earth had fought 2 global wars, developed nuclear weapons, and nearly destroyed itself multiple times. The Council had decided that humanity was too dangerous, too violent, and too unstable to be allowed to spread across the galaxy. Vexthor gave humanity 48 hours to surrender. All weapons must be disabled. All military vessels must power down. All space stations must open their doors to Council inspection teams. If humanity complied, they would be placed under Council protection and guidance. They would be allowed to live on Earth but forbidden from traveling beyond their moon. If humanity refused, the Council fleet would destroy every human presence in space and bombard Earth until surrender was the only option left. The transmission ended. The command center remained silent for a long moment. Then Kyle did something that surprised everyone in the room. He smiled. It started small, just a slight curve at the corner of his mouth. Then it grew into a genuine grin. He turned to look at his second-in-command, Lieutenant Commander Lisa Hayes. Lisa was already smiling too. She was 41 with short brown hair and sharp features. She had served under Kyle for 12 years and knew exactly what he was thinking. She leaned close and spoke quietly so only he could hear. These aliens really have no idea what they just did, do they? It was not a question. Kyle shook his head slowly, still smiling. No, they really don't. He turned to his communications officer. Open a secure channel to Earth Command. Maximum encryption. Tell them we need to implement Protocol Jester. Full deployment, all assets, no restrictions. The officer's fingers flew across his console. Within seconds, the encoded message was racing toward Earth at the speed of light. Kyle looked back at the screen showing the alien fleet. They hung there in space, confident and powerful, waiting for humanity's surrender. They would be waiting a long time. All across the solar system, similar reactions played out. On Mars, the military commanders received the ultimatum and started laughing. In the asteroid belt, mining station crews who were actually disguised military units began preparing their hidden weapons. On Earth's moon, the defense platforms that looked like communication satellites began powering up systems that were definitely not designed for sending messages. The aliens expected fear. They expected panic. They expected desperate pleas for mercy. What they got was something they could never have predicted. Humanity was preparing for war, and humans were happy about it. On Earth, President Gregory Walsh sat in the Situation Room deep beneath the White House. The room was filled with military leaders, scientists, and advisors. Everyone had seen the alien transmission. Everyone knew what it meant. A holographic display in the center of the table showed the alien fleet in detail. 15,000 ships, multiple weapon types, shield technology that Earth scientists still did not fully understand. General Patricia Cole stood and walked to the display. She was 60 years old, the highest-ranking officer in the United Earth Defense Force. She had gray hair cut military short and eyes that missed nothing. She expanded the hologram, showing Earth's forces in comparison to the alien fleet. The difference was stark. Earth had maybe 500 true warships. The aliens outnumbered them 30-1. By every normal measure, Earth was completely outmatched. The general touched the display, and new information appeared. Suddenly, the 500 warships became 5,000 vessels. Mining ships, cargo haulers, research stations, civilian transports. All of them were scattered throughout the solar system. All of them were marked with green icons. The president leaned forward, studying the display. His face showed no worry, only concentration. He was 58, with silver hair and the kind of calm demeanor that made people trust him even in the worst situations. "How many of these can actually fight?" he asked. "All of them," General Cole replied. Every civilian ship built in the last 15 years has hidden modifications, reinforced hulls, concealed weapon mounts, military-grade reactors disguised as civilian power plants. We have been preparing for this since we first detected alien signals. We knew that first contact might not be friendly. Dr. Andrew Mitchell spoke up from his seat. He was the government's chief advisor on alien psychology, a thin man in his 40s with glasses and a mind that never stopped analyzing. "The aliens made a fundamental mistake," he said. "They studied our history and saw our wars. They counted our weapons and measured our technology, but they missed the most important thing about humanity." "Which is?" the president asked. "We weaponize everything," Dr. Mitchell replied. "Show a human a tool, and the first thing they think is how it could be used in a fight. Give us a mining laser, and we figure out how to turn it into a weapon. Give us a cargo ship, and we find ways to hide missiles in the cargo bay. It is not that we are more violent than other species. We are just more creative about violence." He brought up another display, this one showing a timeline of human technological development. "Look at our history. We went from the first airplane to nuclear weapons in 40 years. From the first computer to artificial intelligence in 60 years. We nearly destroyed ourselves a dozen times, but each time we learned and adapted. The aliens evolved slowly over thousands of years. They had time to become peaceful before they became powerful. We did not have that luxury." Commander Nicole Carter, head of special operations, added her own thoughts. She was 45, with blonde hair pulled back in a tight bun, and a reputation for getting impossible missions done. "The aliens think they understand warfare because they have been fighting the same way for centuries. Energy shields stop energy weapons. Thick armor stops physical projectiles. Long-range missiles can be intercepted. But we do not fight like that." She touched the display and pulled up weapon specifications. "Our railguns fire solid slugs at 5% of light speed. Their shields are designed for energy weapons, not kinetic impacts. We have missiles that do not explode until they are already inside their defensive perimeter. We have mines that look like asteroids until a ship gets close. Every tactic they know, we have a counter for. Every weapon they use, we have studied and found weaknesses in." President Walsh listened to all of this, then looked around the room at each person. "The question is simple. Do we surrender or do we fight?" He let the silence hang for a moment, but before anyone could answer, he continued. "Actually, I already know the answer. Americans do not surrender. Humans do not surrender. So the real question is, how do we win?" General Cole pulled up the battle plan that had been prepared years ago, waiting for this exact moment. "We let them come to us. We make them think we are weak and scared. We let them penetrate deep into the solar system. Then we hit them from every direction at once with weapons they do not expect. We turn our entire solar system into a trap." The president studied the plan for several minutes. Around the table, military leaders and advisors waited. Finally, he nodded. "Do it. Full authorization for protocol gesture. And may God have mercy on anyone who gets in our way." The meeting ended. Orders went out across every communication channel. From the orbital stations around Earth to the mining colonies in the asteroid belt, from the military bases on Mars to the research outposts in the outer system, humanity received the same message. The galaxy has come for war. Show them what humans do to bullies. Aboard the Council flagship, Vexthor stood in his command chamber, surrounded by holographic displays showing his entire fleet. Other commanders appeared as projections, attending the meeting from their own ships. There was Admiral Crix, an insectoid creature whose species had been part of the Council for 3,000 years. There was Commander Solon, an energy being that existed inside a containment suit. There were representatives from each of the 12 species that made up the Council's military might. "We have given them their warning," Vexthor said. His translated voice carried no emotion. "Now we wait to see if they have the wisdom to surrender." He pulled up data on Earth's military forces, information gathered by spy satellites and long-range sensors over decades of observation. The humans have approximately 500 warships. Their weapons technology is primitive. Their shields are weak. They have no counter to our numerical advantage. Admiral Crix's mandibles clicked together in what might have been agreement. The translation came through as words. "Then why do I feel uneasy? I have reviewed their military history. These humans have a disturbing pattern. They lose every early battle, then adapt and win the war. They are survivors." Commander Solon's energy form pulsed in a way that indicated concern. "I agree. Their technology is behind ours, yes, but their rate of development is extraordinary. They went from primitive aircraft to faster-than-light travel in just over 100 years. My species took 4,000 years to make the same progress. The humans are either very lucky or very clever." "I suspect it is the latter." Vexthor considered this. He had studied Earth's history more thoroughly than any other council member. He had watched recordings of their wars, read their military strategies, analyze their cultural development. What he found both fascinated and worried him. Humans were indeed survivors. More than that, they were innovators. When faced with a superior enemy, they did not surrender. They changed the rules of engagement. "But numbers do not lie," Vexthor said finally. "We have 15,000 ships to their 500. Even if every human vessel fights to destruction, we will overwhelm them through sheer force. The question is not whether we will win. The question is how much it will cost us. That is why I ordered maximum defensive posture. We will advance slowly and carefully. We will give them no opportunities to exploit." The other commanders agreed. The Council had voted for this action with near unanimity. Only 2 species had argued against direct military intervention, suggesting instead a blockade and isolation. But the majority had decided that humanity needed to be dealt with decisively. Better to act now, while humans were still weak, than wait until they became a true threat. The meeting ended. Vexthor returned his attention to the tactical displays. His fleet was in position, ready to advance on his command. He had fought in 17 campaigns over his long military career. He had faced pirates, rebels, and rogue colonies. He had never lost a battle. This one, he was certain, would be no different. What Vexthor did not know, could not know, was that every assumption he had made was wrong. The number of human warships was correct, but the definition of warship was about to change. The assessment of human technology was accurate, but only if you looked at what humans showed the galaxy. The evaluation of human tactics was based on historical data that was 75 years old. Humanity had learned new tricks since then. As the 48-hour deadline approached, strange things began happening throughout the solar system. Mining ships that had been working in the asteroid belt suddenly stopped their operations and began moving toward defensive positions. Cargo haulers that had been traveling between planets changed course and headed for rally points. Research stations started broadcasting emergency evacuation requests, claiming their life support systems were failing. The Council fleet's sensors picked up all of this activity. To them, it looked like panic. Civilians were fleeing. Workers were abandoning their posts. Humanity was preparing to surrender, or so it seemed. Vexthor ordered his fleet to begin the advance. They would cross into the inner solar system and establish positions near Jupiter. From there, they could strike at Mars or Earth within hours. Captain Ryan Foster sat in the command chair of the mining vessel Rust Bucket. The name was painted on the hull in faded letters, and the ship looked every bit as worn out as the name suggested. Patches covered old meteor impacts. The hull showed decades of wear. The identification beacon listed it as a 60-year-old ore hauler registered to the Foster Mining Company. None of that was true. The Rust Bucket was only 8 years old. The patches were cosmetic. The worn appearance was carefully maintained, and while it was registered to Foster Mining, that company was wholly owned by Earth's Military Intelligence Service. Ryan Foster was not a civilian captain. He was a commander in the Earth Defense Force, and his crew of 12 were all trained military personnel. Ryan was 39 years old, tall and lean from years of living in low gravity. He had brown hair that was always slightly too long for military regulations and an easy smile that made people trust him. Right now, he was watching his sensors as the alien fleet approached his position. His ship was broadcasting a distress call, claiming engine failure and requesting evacuation assistance. The aliens were ignoring them, as expected. They had bigger concerns than one broken-down mining ship. His weapons officer, Lieutenant Sarah Mitchell, ran final checks on their hidden systems. Sarah was 32 with red hair and green eyes that could go from friendly to deadly in an instant. She had been Ryan's weapons officer for 5 years, and they worked together like they could read each other's minds. All systems green, she reported quietly. Railguns are loaded and targeting computers are locked on. Energy weapons are charged. Missile tubes are ready. We can engage on your order. Ryan nodded but did not give the order yet. Not yet. Let them get closer. Let them think we are helpless. The rust bucket continued to drift, its distress beacon calling out to anyone who might listen. Around it, hundreds of other civilian vessels did the same. Some claimed mechanical failures. Others reported medical emergencies. A few simply broadcast panicked messages saying they were trying to flee to Earth. The alien fleet passed through the outer solar system with barely a glance at these desperate civilian ships. Why would they worry about unarmed miners and traders when they had a planet to conquer? It was exactly the response humanity had predicted. The aliens thought like military commanders because they were military commanders. They focused on military targets and ignored civilians. What they did not understand was that in humanity's military doctrine, there was no such thing as a purely civilian vessel. Every ship that left Earth's orbit was designed with dual purpose in mind. Mining lasers that could cut through asteroids could also cut through armor. Cargo holds that carried ore could carry missiles just as easily. Industrial reactors built to power mining equipment could power military weapons without any modifications. The 48-hour deadline passed. Earth sent no surrender. Instead, President Walsh broadcast a message to the Council fleet. It was brief and polite. He thanked them for their concern about humanity's future. He acknowledged their superior numbers and technology. Then he explained that Earth would not be surrendering today or any day. Humanity had earned its place among the stars through hard work and sacrifice. They would not give it up because someone else decided they were dangerous. The president ended the message with a simple statement. We know you have come here to fight. We know you believe you will win easily. We look forward to showing you why that was a mistake. Then the transmission cut off. Aboard the Council flagship, Vexter received the message with something close to respect. The human leader had courage, he would grant them that. But courage without power was just foolishness. He ordered the fleet to advance to combat speed. The time for warnings was over. The time for action had begun. The alien fleet accelerated, moving from the outer system toward Jupiter's orbit. Their formation was tight and professional. Shields were at maximum power. Weapons were ready. Long-range sensors swept space ahead of them, looking for any sign of human military vessels. They found none. The only ships in range were those same civilian vessels still broadcasting their distress calls. Admiral Crix, commanding the vanguard of the fleet, felt his unease growing. Where were the human warships? Every military doctrine in the galaxy said you met your enemy as far from your homeworld as possible. You did not let an invading force penetrate deep into your territory. Yet Earth's military was nowhere to be seen. Were they hiding behind Jupiter? Were they waiting near Mars? Or had they already surrendered and only the politicians were too proud to admit it? That was when Captain Ryan Foster received the signal he had been waiting for. It came encrypted through channels that the aliens could not detect. 3 words that changed everything. Ladies and gentlemen, start your engines. Ryan's smile was fierce and joyful. Execute, he ordered. His crew moved with practiced precision. External panels on the rust bucket's hull slid open, revealing weapon mounts that had been hidden underneath. The old-looking reactor suddenly showed its true power output, surging to military-grade levels. Targeting systems that had been running in passive mode switched to active, painting targets across the alien fleet. All across the outer system, hundreds of civilian vessels did the same. Mining ships became gunships. Cargo haulers opened their holds to reveal missile launchers. Research stations that had claimed to be evacuating suddenly bristled with weapons. The trap was sprung, and the aliens had sailed right into the middle of it. The rust bucket's railguns fired first. They were designed to move asteroids, capable of accelerating dense metal slugs to incredible velocities. Against an armored target, they were devastating. The depleted uranium round left the barrel at 5% of light speed, crossed the distance to the nearest alien ship in less than a second, and punched through its shields like they were made of tissue paper. The alien ship's shields had been designed to stop energy weapons and conventional missiles. They worked by creating an electromagnetic field that dispersed energy and detonated incoming projectiles at a safe distance. But a solid slug traveling at relativistic speeds did not care about electromagnetic fields. It had too much kinetic energy to be stopped. It hit the ship's hull and kept going, tearing through armor, systems, and crew before exploding out the other side. That ship went dark, dead in space. And it was just the first. All across the alien fleet, similar scenes played out. Hundreds of civilian vessels opened fire simultaneously. Railguns designed for mining tore through military shields. Energy weapons meant for cutting metal carved through ship hulls. Missiles that had been hidden in cargo bays streaked toward their targets. Admiral Crix's command ship lurched as multiple impacts hit its shields. Alarms blared throughout the vessel. Damage reports flooded in from across the fleet. Ships were dying, and he did not even know what was shooting at them. His sensors showed civilian vessels, but those civilian vessels were armed like warships. How was this possible? He ordered the fleet to scatter and return fire, but it was like trying to fight shadows. The human ships were smaller and more maneuverable than Council vessels. They darted in, fired, and retreated before his ships could target them effectively. And their weapons, those weapons were nothing like the intelligence reports had suggested. These were not primitive energy weapons. These were kinetic kill vehicles, designed to bypass shields entirely. Commander Solin's energy form flickered with distress as reports came in. 87 ships destroyed in the first minute, 215 more damaged. The humans had planned this perfectly. They had hidden their true military strength among civilian vessels, knowing the Council would not consider them threats. It was a tactic so simple that it should not have worked. But it was working. Vexthor watched the battle unfold from his flagship and felt something he had not experienced in decades. Doubt. His fleet was the most powerful military force in known space. Yet these humans were cutting through it like it was made of paper, not through superior technology, but through tactics and creativity. They fought like nothing he had ever seen before. On the rust bucket, Ryan Foster called out targets while his crew worked with smooth efficiency. Sarah's fingers danced across her console, coordinating fire with dozens of other ships. They had trained for this scenario hundreds of times in simulation. But simulation was nothing compared to the real thing. The adrenaline, the rush, the absolute focus required to stay alive in combat. Ryan found himself grinning despite the danger. Target destroyed, Sarah called out, picking new target, firing railgun 2. Another alien ship went dark as the heavy slug tore through its critical systems. The rust bucket spun on its thrusters, dodging return fire, then accelerated toward a new position. Around them, space filled with the flash of weapons and the debris of destroyed ships. Ryan opened a fleet-wide channel. "Welcome to Earth," he broadcast to the alien fleet. "We hope you enjoy your stay." Then he laughed because sometimes when you were facing impossible odds and somehow winning anyway, laughter was the only appropriate response. His crew laughed with him. Across the fleet, other human vessels picked up the laugh and echoed it. The sound of human joy in the midst of battle was terrifying to the aliens because they could not understand it at all. The Council fleet was in chaos. They had expected an easy conquest. Instead, they had flown into a carefully prepared ambush. Their numerical advantage meant nothing when they could not bring their full force to bear. The human ships attacked in small groups, coordinated perfectly, then vanished before the Council could mass fire on them. It was guerrilla warfare in space, and the Council had no counter for it. Vexthor made a decision. He ordered a fighting retreat back toward Neptune. His fleet needed to regroup, to adapt their tactics, to modify their shields to better handle kinetic weapons. The humans had won the first battle through surprise and innovation, but the war was far from over. The Council still had massive numerical superiority. They would learn from this mistake and return stronger. As the alien fleet pulled back, the human vessels did not pursue. They held their positions, having accomplished their goal. The aliens now knew that Earth would not surrender easily. They knew that human weapons could hurt them. They knew that this war would not be the simple conquest they had expected. Admiral Kyle Barnes, watching from Sentinel-9, allowed himself a small smile. "Phase 1 complete," he said to Lisa Hayes. "Now we see if they are smart enough to realize what just happened." Lisa pulled up casualty reports. 3 human ships destroyed, 18 damaged. Against 143 alien ships destroyed and over 300 damaged. The odds were still heavily against Earth, but they had just proven something important. Humans could fight the Council and win. Now they just had to keep doing it until either the Council gave up or humanity ran out of tricks. The battle had lasted 27 minutes. In that time, humanity had changed the entire nature of the conflict. The Council had come expecting to crush a primitive species. Instead, they found an enemy that fought with cleverness, courage, and a disturbing amount of joy. The first battle was over, but the war had only just begun, and neither side knew yet how it would end. The Council fleet regrouped near Neptune's orbit, licking its wounds. Inside the command chambers of various flagships, anger and confusion mixed with grudging respect. The humans had bloodied them badly in that first engagement. Ships that had seemed helpless turned out to be wolves in sheep's clothing. Vexthor called another council of war, and this time the mood was very different from their first meeting. Admiral Crix's holographic form showed visible agitation. His mandibles clicked rapidly as he spoke. "We underestimated them. That much is clear, but we still have over 14,000 ships remaining. They cannot have more than a few hundred vessels capable of that kind of firepower. We adapt our shields to handle kinetic weapons better. We maintain wider formation so they cannot ambush us again. We proceed with caution, but we proceed." Commander Solin's energy form pulsed with uncertainty. "I am not convinced that adaptation will be enough. The humans did not win through superior weapons. They won through superior tactics. They think differently than we do. They use deception naturally, as if lying were a military strategy. How do we fight an enemy that refuses to follow established rules of warfare?" Vexthor listened to the debate, but his mind was elsewhere. He was reviewing combat footage from the battle, watching how human ships moved and fought. There was something about their tactics that bothered him. They did not fight to destroy the entire fleet. They fought to inflict maximum damage while minimizing their own losses. It was efficient, almost cold in its calculation. These were not warriors drunk on battle fever. These were soldiers executing a careful plan. More troubling was the laughter. Multiple recordings captured human communications during the battle, and many included laughter. Not the nervous laughter of fear, but genuine amusement. The humans were enjoying themselves. Vexthor had fought many species over his long career. Some fought with honor, some fought with rage, some fought with cold efficiency. But he had never encountered a species that fought with joy. "We will proceed," Vexthor announced finally, "but we will assume that everything we see is a trap. Every civilian vessel is potentially hostile. Every empty space might hide mines or weapons platforms. The humans have proven they are clever. We must be more clever. We advance toward Jupiter at quarter speed. Full sensor sweeps at all times. Any vessel that does not respond to hails is to be destroyed on sight." The Council fleet began moving again, but this time there was no confidence in their formation. Ships maintained maximum distance from each other. Shields were constantly cycled through different frequencies. Weapon crews stood at constant alert. They were no longer an army expecting easy victory. They were an army that had learned to fear their enemy. On Earth, President Walsh met again with his military commanders. The mood in the Situation Room was cautiously optimistic. The first battle had gone better than anyone dared hope, but everyone knew that one victory did not win a war. The aliens still had massive numerical superiority. Earth's trump cards had been revealed. The next engagement would be much harder. General Cole brought up the tactical display showing the alien fleet's new position and formation. They are being much more careful now. Wide spacing, constant scanning, defensive posture. They will not fall for the same trick twice. We need to hit them with something they are not expecting. Commander Nicole Carter smiled. That is exactly what we plan to do. She touched the display and highlighted the asteroid belt. The aliens think the asteroids are just rocks. Some have mining equipment but nothing military. They are wrong. We have been hollowing out asteroids and building weapon platforms inside them for 15 years. The entire belt is one giant minefield, and they are about to sail right through it. Dr. Mitchell added his analysis. The psychological impact is just as important as the physical damage. Each time we surprise them, each time we reveal a new capability they did not expect, we erode their confidence. Military doctrine is built on predictability. You train for expected scenarios, but humans specialize in unexpected scenarios. We are chaos agents, and that terrifies them. President Walsh nodded. How many installations do we have in the belt? He asked the question even though he already knew the answer. He wanted everyone in the room to hear it spoken aloud. 347, General Cole replied. Everything from small missile platforms to large directed energy weapons, plus another 82 that are just decoys designed to draw fire. When they enter the belt, they will have to choose between going slow and careful, which gives us more time to prepare other defenses, or going fast and accepting casualties. Either way, we win. On Ceres Station, Commander Jake Sullivan prepared his people for what was coming. Ceres was the largest asteroid in the belt and had been humanity's main mining base for 30 years. It was also the most heavily armed fortress in the solar system outside of Earth itself. The entire interior of the asteroid had been carved out and filled with weapons, power generators, and living quarters for 5,000 military personnel. Jake was 42 years old with dark hair starting to show gray at the temples and a face weathered from years in space. He had overseen the construction of Ceres Station's defenses personally. He knew every weapon system, every tunnel, every backup generator. If the aliens wanted to take the belt, they would have to go through him first. His second in command, Major Kevin Wright, ran final systems checks. Kevin was 35, built like a weight lifter, and had the kind of mind that could juggle a dozen tactical problems simultaneously. All systems show green, he reported. Missile silos are loaded. Railguns are calibrated. The new directed energy weapons are charged and ready. We can sustain full combat operations for 72 hours before we need to worry about ammunition. Jake nodded but kept watching the long-range sensors. The alien fleet was still days away at their current speed, but he wanted to be ready. The directed energy weapons were his secret pride. They had been developed using theories adapted from alien technology that Earth's spy satellites had observed. Humanity could not build shields as good as the Council's, but they had figured out how to punch through those shields with concentrated energy pulses. The weapons worked by releasing multiple energy bursts in rapid succession, each one at a slightly different frequency. The alien shields would adapt to stop the first burst, but by the time they adapted, the second burst with a different frequency was already hitting them. It was like trying to block punches from 6 different directions at once. Eventually, something got through. 3 days later, the Council fleet reached the outer edge of the asteroid belt. Vexter ordered reduced speed and increased scanning. His sensors showed thousands of asteroids, many with signs of mining activity. His intelligence reports said humans had been mining the belt for decades. Most of the asteroids showed normal readings. Metal ores, ice deposits, abandoned equipment. Nothing that looked like a military installation. But Vexter had learned not to trust normal readings. He ordered his ships to proceed in single file, using the largest vessels as shields for the smaller ones. They would treat every asteroid as potentially hostile until proven otherwise. It would make their passage through the belt slow, but slow and alive was better than fast and dead. The fleet had penetrated about a third of the way into the belt when the first asteroid opened fire. One moment it looked like any other rock in space. The next moment, panels slid away from its surface and missile silos revealed themselves. Dozens of missiles launched simultaneously, accelerating toward the alien fleet with sophisticated guidance systems that made them nearly impossible to intercept. Admiral Crix's ship was the first to be hit. His point defense systems managed to destroy most of the incoming missiles, but 3 got through. They were not conventional explosives. They were nuclear-pumped laser weapons, designed to detonate at precise range and focus all their energy into a coherent beam. The beams hit his shields and burned through them in seconds, carving deep wounds into his ship's hull. Alarms screamed throughout the fleet. More asteroids revealed themselves as weapon platforms. The humans had turned the entire belt into a death trap. Missiles, railguns, and energy weapons all opened fire from multiple directions. The Council ships found themselves under attack from enemies they could barely see, hidden among millions of rocks. Commander Solon ordered her ships to return fire, targeting any asteroid that showed energy signatures. But for every platform they destroyed, 2 more revealed themselves. And worse, some of the platforms they were shooting at turned out to be decoys. Cheap shells made to look like weapon installations, drawing fire away from the real threats. On Ceres Station, Jake Sullivan watched the battle unfold with grim satisfaction. The aliens were doing exactly what he predicted. They were bunching up, trying to concentrate their defensive fire. That made them better targets. He gave the order he had been waiting to give for years. All stations open fire, full salvos. Let them see what real firepower looks like. Ceres Station lit up like a small sun. Missile silos hidden across the asteroid's surface launched their payloads. Railguns buried deep in the rock fired round after round of depleted uranium slugs. And the directed energy weapons, the crown jewels of Earth's defensive technology, began their deadly work. The energy weapons fired in bursts, 6 pulses per second, each at a different frequency. The effect on the alien shields was devastating. The shields would block the first pulse, adapt to that frequency, then get hit by 5 more pulses at different frequencies. It was like trying to defend against a boxer who could throw punches at 6 different speeds simultaneously. The shields failed, and the ships behind them died. Vexthor watched in horror as his fleet took catastrophic damage. Ships exploded or went dark. Others spun out of control, their navigation systems destroyed. In less than 10 minutes, he had lost another 400 vessels. The humans had turned the asteroid belt into the most effective defensive position he had ever seen. Every rock could be hiding weapons. Every piece of debris could be a disguised mine. He made a decision that went against every military instinct he had. Retreat. Fall back to the outer belt. We need to reassess. His fleet commanders argued, saying that retreat would show weakness, but Vexthor overruled them. Showing weakness was better than being destroyed. The fleet turned and began fighting its way back the way it had come, still under constant fire from hidden platforms. By the time the Council fleet cleared the asteroid belt, they had lost a total of 600 more ships, over 2,000 vessels destroyed in 2 engagements. The fleet that had arrived with such confidence was now bloodied and demoralized. Worse, they still had not seen Earth's actual military fleet. Everything they had fought so far was defensive installations and converted civilian vessels. Admiral Crix's ship was heavily damaged and had to transfer command to a backup vessel. As he moved through the corridors, seeing wounded crew and damaged systems, he wondered if the Council had made a terrible mistake. They had assumed humanity would be easy prey. Instead, they had kicked a hornet's nest and discovered the hornets had nuclear weapons. The Council fleet set up a defensive position beyond the belt and began urgent repairs. Vexthor called yet another meeting, but this time he included representatives from the Council itself, politicians and leaders from the 12-member species. The transmission would take time to reach Council space, but he needed to make his report. The situation had changed dramatically. "The humans are not what we expected," Vexter began. "We came here believing we were dealing with a primitive species that had gotten lucky with faster-than-light travel. That assessment was wrong. The humans are tactically sophisticated, technologically creative, and absolutely unwilling to surrender. They have turned their entire solar system into a fortress. Every asteroid, every moon, every piece of space infrastructure is potentially a weapon." He brought up damage reports and casualty figures. Over 2,000 ships lost, nearly 7,000 personnel dead, damage to another 1,500 vessels requiring major repairs. And we have not even reached Mars yet, much less Earth. If we continue this campaign, we may win through sheer numbers, but the cost will be catastrophic. Tens of thousands of ships, hundreds of thousands of lives. Is that an acceptable price? Commander Solon supported his assessment. "I have analyzed human tactics extensively. They are not fighting to win battles. They are fighting to make victory too expensive for us to afford. It is a strategy of attrition, and it is working. Every engagement costs us far more than it costs them. If we push forward to Earth, we may destroy their homeworld, but we will cripple our own fleet in the process." One of the Council representatives, a being whose species specialized in economics, pointed out the larger problem. "We came here to eliminate a potential threat. Instead, we are creating an actual enemy. If we destroy Earth, we will have to permanently station fleets here to prevent survivors from rebuilding. If we withdraw, we will look weak to every other species watching this conflict. But if we negotiate, we might find a third option." Vexter had been thinking the same thing. The humans had proven they could not be easily conquered. But had they proven they wanted to be conquerors themselves? All the intelligence reports showed humans fighting defensive wars throughout their history. They were aggressive when threatened, but they also formed alliances and trade partnerships. Maybe there was a way to turn humanity from a potential threat into an actual asset. He made his recommendation. "I propose we open negotiations with Earth, not from a position of demanding surrender but from a position of mutual respect. We acknowledge they have the right to defend themselves. They acknowledge our concerns about their expansion. We find common ground. The alternative is a war that benefits no one." The Council debated for hours. Some species wanted to continue the war, believing that backing down would damage Council authority. Others agreed with Vexter that negotiation was the only sensible option. Finally, they reached a compromise. They would send a message to Earth proposing talks, but the fleet would hold position. If humans refused to negotiate, the war would continue. On Earth, President Walsh received the Council's message with cautious optimism. His military advisors were divided. Some wanted to press the advantage while the aliens were reeling. Others warned that pushing too hard might force the Council into a corner where they had no choice but to fight to the death. Walsh listened to all the arguments, then made his decision. "We will negotiate," he announced. "But we negotiate as equals, not as supplicants. We have proven we can defend ourselves. Now we prove we can be reasonable." He looked around the room at the generals and admirals. "But keep our defenses active. Trust is earned, not given. If these talks are a trick, we need to be ready." The meeting was set for neutral ground, a small station in the outer asteroid belt that had somehow survived the fighting. Both sides agreed to minimal security details. No weapons, no tricks, just talking. It was a gamble for both parties. The Council risked looking weak. Earth risked giving the aliens time to adapt and prepare. President Walsh led the human delegation personally. With him came Admiral Kyle Barnes, General Patricia Cole, and Dr. Andrew Mitchell. They represented military strength, defensive capability, and understanding of alien psychology. It was a balanced team designed to show that humanity could fight but preferred to talk. The Council sent Vexter, Admiral Crix, Commander Solon, and a diplomat named Thane who specialized in conflict resolution. Thane was from a species that looked almost human, which was probably intentional. The Council wanted to appear less alien, less threatening. It was a small gesture, but Walsh appreciated it. The station they met at was small and cramped. The main conference room had been designed for maybe 20 people, and now it held representatives from two civilizations that had been killing each other days before. The tension was thick enough to cut with a knife. Everyone sat down at the table, humans on one side, aliens on the other, and for a long moment nobody spoke. Finally, Vexter broke the silence. His translated voice was careful, diplomatic. We came here believing humanity was a threat that needed to be contained or eliminated. We were wrong about the elimination part. You have proven you cannot be easily defeated. But the question remains whether you are a threat to galactic peace. President Walsh leaned forward, his hands folded on the table. Let me ask you a question. In 75 years of observing Earth, how many times did you see us attack another species? How many times did we invade a neighbor? How many times did we start a war rather than finish one? The answer, of course, was zero. Humans fought each other constantly, but they had never encountered another intelligent species until the Council arrived. Vexter acknowledged this point, but argued that human history of violence suggested they would be aggressive once they encountered other species. Dr. Mitchell spoke up. You are making the same mistake many people make when studying humans. You see our capacity for violence and assume that is all we are, but you are ignoring our equally strong capacity for cooperation. Yes, we fight, but we also form alliances, build trade networks, create international laws. We nearly destroyed ourselves several times, but each time we pulled back from the brink. We learned. He pulled up historical data on a portable display. Look at our last 100 years. We went from global warfare to global cooperation. We established international organizations. We created nuclear treaties. We started working together to solve common problems like climate change and disease. We are violent, yes, but we are also adaptable. We learn from our mistakes. Admiral Crix, his wounds from the battle still being treated, asked the obvious question. If you are so peaceful now, why did you fight us so effectively? Why did you hide weapons on civilian vessels? Why did you turn asteroids into fortresses? That does not sound like a peaceful species. Admiral Kyle Barnes answered, because we knew this might happen. When we first detected alien signals, we had to prepare for two possibilities. One, that aliens would be friendly and we could join the galactic community peacefully. Two, that aliens would be hostile and we would need to defend ourselves. We hoped for the first but prepared for the second. Turns out we were right to prepare. General Cole added her perspective. Every weapon we built, every defensive installation we created was designed with one purpose: survival. We did not build an invasion fleet. We built a defensive network. There is a difference. Our weapons are designed to stop an attacker, not to conquer territory. Thane, the council diplomat, listened carefully to all of this. His role was to find common ground, and he thought he saw an opening. So if I understand correctly, humanity's military preparations were purely defensive. You had no plans to expand aggressively into council space. You simply wanted the ability to say no if someone tried to conquer you. Exactly, President Walsh confirmed. We want to explore the galaxy. We want to trade with other species. We want to learn and share knowledge. But we want to do all of that as free people, not as subjects or slaves. If the price of galactic citizenship is surrendering our independence, then we will stay home and be independent. Commander Solin's energy form pulsed thoughtfully. That is a reasonable position. But how do we know you will remain defensive? What happens when humans spread across the galaxy and become powerful? What stops you from becoming the aggressors then? Dr. Mitchell smiled. The same thing that has stopped us from destroying ourselves for the last 100 years. Self-interest. We learned that cooperation is more profitable than conquest. We learned that trade builds wealth better than war. We learned that diversity makes us stronger, not weaker. These are not just philosophical ideals. They are practical lessons learned through hard experience. He leaned forward, warming to his subject. Look at your own council, 12 species working together. You did not conquer each other. You formed alliances because it benefited everyone. That is exactly what humans want. We want to be part of something larger than ourselves. We want to contribute to galactic civilization, but we want to do it as partners, not as subordinates. The negotiations continued for hours. Both sides presented their concerns and their hopes. The council worried about human unpredictability and aggression. Humans worried about council restrictions and control. Slowly, carefully, they began finding areas of agreement. Both sides wanted peace. Both sides valued trade and knowledge sharing. Both sides recognized that continued war benefited no one. Thane proposed a framework. Earth would be granted provisional membership in the Galactic Council. For 50 years, human expansion would be monitored and evaluated. During this time, humans would have access to council databases and trade networks, but would accept observers on their ships and colonies. After 50 years, if humanity proved they could be responsible galactic citizens, they would be granted full membership. President Walsh considered the proposal. It was not perfect. 50 years of oversight felt like parole rather than partnership. But it was better than war, and it gave humanity what they needed most: time. Time to learn, to grow, to prove themselves. He countered with his own modification. We accept provisional membership and oversight, but in exchange, we want full access to Council's scientific databases and technology. Not weapons technology, we will develop that ourselves. But medical knowledge, agricultural techniques, energy systems, the things that will help us improve life for our people. If we are going to be part of the Council, even provisionally, we should have access to the benefits of membership. Vexthor saw the logic in this. If they gave humans access to beneficial technology, it would demonstrate good faith. It would show that the Council valued cooperation over domination. And frankly, human scientific creativity might contribute new insights to technologies the Council had been using for centuries. He agreed to the modification. There was one more sticking point. The Council wanted humanity to share their military innovations, particularly the kinetic weapons and frequency-shifting energy weapons that had proven so effective. Some Council members saw this as disarmament. Others saw it as technology sharing. The debate was heated. Admiral Kyle Barnes finally broke the deadlock with a simple observation. You want our weapons technology to defend against future threats. We want your scientific knowledge to improve our civilization. That sounds like trade to me. We share what we know about military innovation. You share what you know about peaceful technology. Everyone benefits. It was an elegant solution. Both sides would gain valuable knowledge. Neither side would be completely vulnerable to the other. The Council would improve their defensive capabilities. Humans would accelerate their development in non-military fields. Trust would be built through mutual benefit rather than forced compliance. The treaty was drafted over the next 2 days. Lawyers and diplomats from both sides pored over every word, making sure there were no loopholes or misunderstandings. Finally, it was ready. The signing ceremony was held aboard Sentinel-9, with Admiral Kyle Barnes serving as host. It seemed fitting that the treaty would be signed on the station where the conflict had begun. Representatives from both sides gathered in the station's largest conference room. Cameras recorded everything for broadcast across both human and Council space. This was a historic moment, and everyone knew it. The treaty that would determine humanity's place in the galaxy was about to be signed. President Walsh and Vexthor approached the table where the treaty waited. They had been enemies days before. Now they were about to become allies, or at least partners. Walsh picked up the pen, an old-fashioned instrument that seemed appropriate for such an important moment. He signed his name with a steady hand. Vexthor used a device that recorded his biological signature, the equivalent of a signature for his species. The treaty was sealed. The war was over. A new era was beginning. Around the room, people from both sides began to relax. Some even smiled. The tension that had filled the air for weeks was finally lifting. Kyle Barnes, watching from the side of the room, allowed himself a small smile. The galaxy had come to destroy humanity and ended up forming an alliance instead. Earth had proven something important. Not that humans were the strongest or the smartest, but that humans were survivors, adapters, and ultimately bridge builders. They could fight when necessary, but they preferred to talk. They could be fierce enemies, but they would rather be friends. 5 years passed. The treaty held. Humans spread slowly and carefully into the galaxy, always mindful of Council observers watching their every move. They established colonies on 3 new worlds, always choosing uninhabited planets to avoid conflict. They opened trade routes with several council species. They contributed to scientific research, bringing fresh perspectives to problems that had puzzled alien scientists for centuries. Captain Ryan Foster, promoted to admiral after the war, now commanded a joint Human Council patrol fleet. His crew was mixed, humans working alongside former enemies. It had been awkward at first, but time and shared experiences had built real friendships. His weapons officer was still Sarah Mitchell, but she now worked with an insectoid gunnery specialist from Admiral Crick's species. They had become an effective team. On Earth, Dr. Andrew Mitchell ran the Interspecies Academy, training diplomats and scholars in the complex art of galactic relations. His students came from across known space, learning about human culture and psychology. The Academy had become one of the most prestigious institutions in Council space, known for producing diplomats who could bridge cultural divides. Vexter retired from military service and took a position as Council ambassador to Earth. He split his time between Earth and various Council worlds, building connections and smoothing over cultural misunderstandings. He had become something of a celebrity among humans, respected for his willingness to admit mistakes and change course. In interviews, he often joked that humanity had taught the galaxy an important lesson about never underestimating anyone. The galaxy had changed. Human innovations in weapons technology had been adapted for defensive purposes, making Council space safer from pirates and raiders. But more importantly, human philosophy had begun influencing galactic culture. The idea that peace was worth fighting for had spread. The concept that former enemies could become trusted allies had taken root. The belief that diversity made civilizations stronger was gaining acceptance. President Walsh, now in his second term, gave a speech at the United Nations reflecting on the 5 years since first contact. He talked about how close humanity had come to being destroyed or enslaved. He talked about the courage of those who fought and the wisdom of those who chose to talk instead. He talked about the future and the possibilities that lay ahead. But mostly, he talked about what humanity had proven to the galaxy. Not that humans were superior, not that they were destined to rule, but simply that they were survivors who refused to give up, adapters who turned every challenge into an opportunity, and builders who preferred to create rather than destroy. The galaxy had come for battle. Humans had smiled and laughed and found a better way. As Earth's first colony ships departed for distant stars, escorted by mixed human-alien crews, the message was clear. Humanity had arrived in the galactic community, not as conquerors or victims, but as equals. The journey had been difficult and dangerous, but in the end, both humans and the Council had learned something valuable. That peace built through mutual respect was stronger than any peace imposed by force. Admiral Ryan Foster stood on the observation deck of his ship, looking out at the stars. Next to him stood Commander Kess, one of Admiral Crick's officers who had fought against humans in the early battles. They had become friends over the years, bonded by shared duty and mutual respect. Kess asked Ryan if humans had ever truly feared they might lose. Ryan smiled, the same smile he had worn when the first battle began. Of course we were afraid. Fear is natural, but fear does not mean surrender. We were afraid and determined at the same time. We knew the odds were against us, but we also knew that giving up meant losing everything we valued. So we fought, not because we were certain of victory, but because we were certain that freedom was worth the risk. Kess considered this. His species had evolved differently without the constant warfare that shaped humanity. They had become powerful slowly, peacefully. They did not understand the human combination of fear and courage, desperation and hope, but 5 years of working with humans had taught him to respect what he did not fully understand. Ryan continued, his voice thoughtful. The galaxy arrived for battle. We smiled and laughed, but that does not mean we were not taking it seriously. We smiled because we had hope. We laughed because even in the darkest moments, humans find humor. It is one of our survival mechanisms. We laugh in the face of danger because the alternative is to be paralyzed by fear, and we cannot afford to be paralyzed. He turned to face Kess directly. That is what makes humanity truly dangerous, if you want to use that word, not our weapons or our tactics. but our absolute conviction that any problem can be solved, any enemy can become a friend, and any future can be shaped by those brave enough to try. We do not accept defeat because we do not believe in impossible. We believe in difficult, in challenging, in requiring effort, but not impossible. Kess understood now why the Council had been so worried about humanity, and why those worries had been both justified and misplaced. Humans were dangerous. But they were dangerous in the way that a forest fire could be dangerous. Destructive if opposed, but capable of clearing away old growth and allowing new life to flourish. The galaxy had needed what humans brought: new ideas, new energy, new hope. The two officers stood together in comfortable silence, watching the stars stream past as their ship traveled between worlds. Behind them, human and alien crew members worked side by side, proof that different species could find common ground. The war that almost destroyed humanity had instead become the foundation for a new kind of galactic civilization, one built on respect rather than fear, cooperation rather than domination, hope rather than despair. The galaxy had arrived for battle. Humans had smiled and laughed, and in doing so, they had changed the galaxy forever, not through conquest or submission, but through the simple act of refusing to give up on the possibility of a better future. That was the real lesson of first contact. That even in the darkest moments, even when facing impossible odds, hope could prevail if people were brave enough to fight for it, and wise enough to know when to stop fighting and start talking. The story of humanity's introduction to the galaxy would be told for generations across countless worlds. It would be studied in military academies as an example of creative tactics. It would be analyzed in diplomatic schools as a case study in conflict resolution. But most importantly, it would be remembered as proof that different civilizations could find common ground, that enemies could become friends, and that the future was never as fixed as it seemed. Earth had survived its trial by fire. Humanity had earned its place among the stars, and the galaxy, for all its initial fear and hostility, was better for having humans in it. That was the ultimate irony. The species the Council had tried to eliminate for being too dangerous had proven to be exactly what the galaxy needed: new blood, new ideas, new hope for a future built on cooperation rather than domination. The galaxy had arrived for battle. Humans had smiled and laughed and found a better way. And everyone, human and alien alike, was better for it.